What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations.
Something's got to separate you from the rest. So you got to be willing to do whatever.
In my experience, Black men have struggles like having community with each other.
But she represents the mammy stereotype.
Now that was epic. I needed that. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, and being part of that movement since 2020. We've reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers. And a little other housekeeping stuff. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. And if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of, please feel free to email me at dr.vibe@thebeshow.com. And we're going to continue a conversation with she's become a new friend, but she's a friend now. First time she was on, she was new. Now she's got everything, she's ready to roll. She's got things going on. She's all right. So back with us today is Adaoma Patterson, United Way, Greater Toronto, Director, Community Services, Investments, Community Impact, and Mobilization. What is going on?
I am wonderful. It is a beautiful Wednesday and always happy to be back. Yes, you've been coming and chat with you.
Yes. Before we start, give me one win you've had recently.
One win. I woke up this morning and I tackled several projects. I was able to knock off a bunch of things that were pressing. And so for me, that's a win. I was able to get some work done and here I am again. So it's all a good
win. And did you celebrate getting that done?
Not yet, but I will.
Okay.
The day's The day's not over. Yeah.
All right. We're going to get to celebrate because I love when people get things done. I say, well, what did you do to celebrate it?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay. Well, we are doing a continuing conversation, and I want to say too, I hope this is continuing conversations. This is our second one. We did one earlier on, but I want to put it out there. Hopefully it's a continuing conversation because we would like you back when you have time.
Oh, awesome. And I'm happy to talk to you anytime, Dr. Vibe. The first conversation was really interesting and good. The time flew by, it was more than an hour. And so, yeah. Thank you for this platform.
My pleasure. It's our platform. It's our platform.
Yes.
Today we're talking about the United Way's 211 service. And I have to be honest, someone told me about this service about a year ago. I had no idea what United Way's 211 service is. So my first conversation topic is, what is 211 in your words, and why does it matter for the residents in the Greater Toronto area?
So thank you for saying that. You had, until someone mentioned it, you had no idea, because we hear that often. And so in a nutshell, 211 is Canada, because it's available Canada-wide, Canada's primary source of information for government and community-based services, so non-health related. It is, in essence, a phone number that you call if you are looking for a community type service. You need help with finding affordable housing, or a food bank, maybe an after-school program or counseling program for your children or for someone in your family. You simply dial 211 or log on to 211.ca or 211 Ontario online, and it is your source of information. So people know 911,
yes,
emergency, 311, that's usually your local municipal services. So, they didn't pick up your garbage at the curb today. You dial 311. The road, is a terrible pothole. You need the city to know. You call 311. 211. It's similar in that it's about information, access to information, but it's really focused on the services that might help an individual or a family member when they need it.
Excellent. How does 211 fit with the United Way Greater Toronto's broader mission?
So that's great. 211. So first of all, a little bit of backstory about 211.
Yeah.
My understanding is that in 2000, the federal government designated 211, those numbers, as the official number for accessing social and community services, right? So that number was made available. And the first 211 was started in Toronto by United Way. So we don't deliver the service directly, but we fund and support it in many ways. And so 211 is important to us because, of course, we are focused on providing supports for people who are experiencing poverty. So we address poverty by funding and investing in programs and services that are targeted to people who are experiencing low income, who are vulnerable. And so 211 is really an important part of that ability to reach people and for people to be able to reach the services, the community and social services that they need when they need it. And so that's why we believe in the 211 service.
Nice. What gaps in the social safety net does 211 uniquely fill compared to other helplessness or government portals?
So 211 really just tries to be that one place that people can go. It's an easy number to remember. It's accessible because you can access it by, just dialing the number on your cell phone, logging in online from your phone or from a computer. And so what it does is help people figure out where to go when they are either in a crisis or they just need some information. That is the gap that it's filling. The social safety net, in the Greater Toronto Area and in Canada and Ontario is a really complex net. And often it involves the different levels of government. It involves a network of community organizations like COSTI, CAFCAN Social Services, Roots Community Services. It involves many agencies who are supporting people in the community. But how do you know where to go? What is available in your area? What is the difference between one service and another? And 211 is one important component of helping people to just make sense of what is the most appropriate service they need and then where to get that. And so that's why 211 is essential. Otherwise, people would have to be using Google or other search engines and try and cobble that together. This way, when you call 211, you're speaking to someone or you're chatting live with someone online. You are trying to, you're putting in some keywords in the search engine, or you're saying, you know what, I don't have some place to sleep tonight. I need a shelter. And then that person is then able to help you navigate. Or I need to access food. I need, is there a food bank in my community that I can go to and get help?
Building onto that, how does 211 support equity-seeking groups like newcomers, seniors, people with disabilities, racialized communities?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work out?
So first of all, 211 is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The service is available in more than 150 languages.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So that's one important component because, of course, that if it was only English or French, that would exclude a large number of people. And 211 includes agencies and programs and services that are culturally specific. right? So if you are a member of an Indigenous community and you are really looking to connect to services that are specific to Indigenous peoples, they're able to direct you and tell you which programs and where those are located. And so it's really important, of course. United Way is always committed to thinking about equity and applying equity in many ways, including who we fund. And we fund a range of organizations that do address equity, that do speak to and work with specific communities. And so that 211 is no exception there. You can really access it through the various mechanisms, and it does provide access to culturally appropriate services.
You mentioned the cultural appropriation. Does the service also address urban versus suburban versus rural?
Yeah, so I did a test today with 211 and I went online, and one of the things it asks you is what community you are in, right? So because it would make no sense, of course, if I live in Brampton, that it's providing me information for services in Scarborough, right? Like too far, I just can't get there. And so once I put Brampton in and then put the type of service I was looking for, the list that it provided were things that are relatively close to where I live. Many services, of course, provide, will support people across cities and regions. So sometimes the agency is providing a service in more than one area. And so those will come up in the search as well. But yes, it's definitely geographic specific. And the interesting thing is, so, if you are, although I don't know how they do that with cell phones, but the technology and I are not, that's not my area. But, in the past, of course, if I was in Mississauga and I was calling 211 from Mississauga, like it would connect me to folks who had the database related to Mississauga. Now, I think they ask you, what city or what area are you looking to get services, find services in, and then the person on the other end helps you just to tailor that and narrow that down.
Do you have any stats on what types of needs are most common that are received by the 211 service?
So generally, I can speak generally. We 211, they tend to get a lot of calls around more urgent supports. So things like accessing a food bank, or a family member who's experiencing some kind of crisis. Mm-hmm. So shelter services, settlement also. So those who are newcomers and are looking to get some help in settling and integrating and, knowing where to go. Those tend to be the top services that for calls that are received by 211.
It's very interesting. I'd just be curious to listen to some of the calls, because I look at this 211 service as a great reflection of what's going on in Canadian society.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's a great pulse. And of course, they collect data. I will say that 211 is anonymous. So for those who, if a very sensitive issue that someone is experiencing, domestic violence, for example, and they're looking for options and places to go if they need to flee or leave their current circumstances, no one has to reveal who they are. They do not have to provide a name or a location. They can call anonymously. And so that's a key feature of 211, because of course that's important to people. And so they are, keeping stats, like you asked about what are the top issues that people are calling about. They have been increasingly asking, a couple of questions in terms of social identity, because we want to make sure that people, a range of people, know about the service and are accessing the service. But generally, you do not have to disclose, any information that could identify you.
How does 211 coordinate with frontline agencies? You've mentioned some in our earlier conversation. How does it coordinate with frontline agencies, municipalities, health systems, and emergency services?
Yeah, so that's great because I think that's a key feature and need for 211 is that even those who may be helping people find services, that they're able to use 211. So our funded agencies, so United Way Greater Toronto, the agencies that we fund are required to make sure that their listing is updated on 211. So annually we ask, like, is your profile on the 211 platform up to date? Is it there? When was the last time you checked it to make sure that the services and the information that 211 has is current? Because they have to rely on those who are providing the services, right, to keep that database current. So that's one way. That's a requirement on our end for agencies that we fund. Municipalities and agencies in the sector, hospitals are aware of 211. And so if it's a social worker, for example, who has a family that is sitting in front of them, they can help on that person's behalf or that family's behalf to access. So I think 211 within the sector, the social services sector and health sector, people are aware and people who work in the sector are aware of 211. As you said at the beginning, getting the word out to residents is, where it's a constant sort of effort to make sure that people know that. In some municipalities, they've put information in bus shelters, for example. They do the advertising that you'll see in a bus shelter. They will run campaigns to increase awareness about 211. And they do that for two reasons. One is to make sure that people know where they can go for help. And secondly, that they're not calling 311 or 911, and particularly 911 for non-emergency help, right? That people know. And sometimes you will see on municipal ads where it will say like 911, 311, and 211 to help people understand the distinction and when to call which number, when is it appropriate to call. So it's always a constant need to keep communicating and letting people know about 211. And so that happens, in conjunction with others who partner and who have a stake and vested interest in making sure their residents are aware of 211.
How does the United Way's investment strategy strengthen the ecosystem that 211 navigates?
So United Way funds and invests in more than 300 agencies in Peel, Toronto, and York. And so we, fund what we consider a critical network of agencies, right? That translates to hundreds and hundreds of programs that are delivered for the community. And so 211, the service, is one component of that. And we ensure that 211 is connected to the network of services and that the network of services is connected to 211. So as I said earlier, agencies are required to maintain current information in the database. Any changes, we ask them to make sure that 211 is informed and that profile is up to date. So 211 is just one aspect of the infrastructure and the network that we invest in Peel, Toronto, and York region.
Okay. So through the investment strategy of United Way, has there been any notice of service gaps discovered through the data that's been collected via 211?
I think the biggest thing is really the importance of maintaining that database, right? And making sure that the database is current. Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot of social and community services in Peel, Toronto, and York. Some we don't fund, right? So we don't have direct control over ensuring that their information is there. But there is a process for 211 to be able to monitor changes in who is providing services. So if new agencies emerge, right? Nonprofits are created all the time, making sure that they are aware and that 211 is a service for them because it's how people find them. And so that is an ongoing challenge. And sometimes people will say, well, the service didn't exactly match. The service that was provided to me when I called 211 didn't exactly match what I needed. And so there's just a wealth of information. There is so much information, and people are often overloaded with information that sometimes it's just, it's challenging for people to be able to navigate. Okay, if you give me 3 organizations that are potentially providing that service that I need, what is my next step, right? And so sometimes there's the gap between, okay, you get the information and then the follow through that needs to happen, because then that resident, that person who is trying to find a service, then has to call each of those agencies and then, try and get connected, or visit and try and get connected. So there are still gaps in terms of people's ability to find information. If I search food banks, if I go into 211 and I put in as the keyword food bank, I'm going to get a lot of information. So how do I then narrow that down? How do I know which food bank is in my neighborhood or my community, the hours of operation? Like if I was to go there on Saturday at 6 p.m., would I be able to access food? And so 211 is one tool. It's an important gateway in accessing services, but it doesn't address, all of the disparities that may exist. Like maybe there aren't enough services in my community. Maybe because I don't live in Scarborough or I don't live in Mississauga, perhaps there are areas where there are more services. And so United Way, when we fund agencies, we do look at the geographic distribution of where organizations are located and deliver services. And we try and find a balanced way to be funding, like those 300 agencies are across the different cities in Peel, the different cities in York Region, and then in the different areas in Toronto, right? And so geography is an important lens that we apply, just like equity is another lens that we apply. So who are we funding? What population do they serve? So whether that's women or children, seniors, racialized seniors, Black seniors, Indigenous seniors, for example, that we always look at who and what and where our investments are going and where across the GTA they are being invested in.
With the information that's been received through 211, the 211 service, where does United Way see some of the bottlenecks out there right now for the people that use the service? Where are the bottlenecks?
Again, it's the connection between, okay, so I've been given this information now, or I searched online and I have this agency, and whether that agency actually can meet that need, especially if it's an urgent need.
Right.
Some are easier than others. So if I need a shelter space, if I need a shelter, I don't have anywhere to go tonight, I don't have anywhere to sleep, and I don't want to sleep outside, right? Those services are more readily available and accessible to people because municipalities manage most of the shelters in the region. And so that information is available on 211, and then they generally have a central line, and then they help connect to, an outreach worker or someone else. But other things, like if I'm having a mental health crisis, 211, and I call 211, or a family member, say I'm calling on behalf of a family member who's experiencing a mental health crisis, that service may not necessarily line up in terms of where the person lives. Can they access the service immediately because it's a crisis? And so in that case, it might be better to go to a hospital, for example, to stabilize the person. And so I think that's where sometimes, the bottleneck happens is once I have that information, is the service providing what I need exactly when I need it, right? And again, just the volume and sheer number of services that are available, trying to figure out, 211 helps to narrow that down, but then I still have to do a little bit of due diligence in thinking about, okay, is this the appropriate service for me?
Since Oh, how long ago again was the service started?
More than 20 years. So the
Oh my
services,
gosh.
yeah, yes. And of course it has grown and expanded, right? So the
I'm just going, this thing's been around for 20 years. I had no idea.
yes, exactly. Although I think that people who need, so if you have that generally that urgent need, then somehow it comes, whether through your church, your mosque, or your social worker. So if you're seeing a social services worker, maybe you're on Ontario Works, or you're receiving disability. Your doctor, some doctors also, are very familiar. Healthcare providers are familiar with 211.
Well, I'm going to start spreading the word after
Yes,
this.
yes. And it's important. And I think, again, it's used in two ways. So it's people who need a service call, but also people who are working with people, right? It's a tool for them as well. And I've seen schools use it. So, in a former life, when I worked in Peel Region, I often worked with high schools. And so the teachers or social workers in some of the high schools were familiar with 211 because they're dealing with young people who sometimes experience crisis or are really going through a hard time. And they would then access 211 and help try and find the right service for that student that was in front of them, right? So it's used in two ways.
What trends is 211 data revealing about poverty, housing insecurity, and mental health in the Greater Toronto area?
I don't know whether 211 can make that connection. I guess the way they make the connection, of course, is to what are the issues that people are calling about, right? Which we talked about before. So really basic needs and emergency services is often high on the list. I would say overall, though, United Way we pay attention to the issues that people are experiencing, and we get that information through our funded agencies. We are aware of emerging trends through the work we do with our partners, through data, census data. And we know that one of the things that we are starting to talk about is increase in poverty again. So during the pandemic, when there was CERB and other benefits, there was a bit of a dip in the low income, what the federal government calls the low income rate. So the number of people that were below a certain low income threshold, that number decreased because people were getting additional income supports. That number has climbed back to pre-pandemic levels. And I can't give you the exact stats. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's a trend that we're seeing. Of course, we talked about this in relation to African asylum seekers, but housing crisis, we see that in the news. We hear that, governments at all levels are concerned about a housing crisis. And what that means is access to housing that is affordable and safe, right? So no more than 30% of your income is going to housing, and housing that is therefore then subsidized for people who are living in low income. Access to those, very challenging. Long wait lists for subsidized housing.
Yes.
In Peel, Toronto, and York, and really all over the country, all over Canada. And so that remains really the key issue, I think, of our time, is that there just is not enough affordable housing for people to be able to access. And as a result, it puts pressure on them on everything else that they have to deal with, including food. With the high cost of food, they're relying much more heavily and consistently on food banks. And so whether that's Daily Bread Food Bank or North York Harvest or the Mississauga Food Bank, Knight's Table, many of whom we also fund at United Way, they are reporting record numbers of visits, first-time visitors to their food banks, and many people who are employed, right? So they are working. But because they're often juggling high rent, because they can't get into something that's affordable. They are then having to rely on a food bank to make up for the fact that they can't afford, to feed their families. So the ripple impact of a lack of affordable housing is so large, because that budget item then, takes up so much of your income that you have to figure out other ways and access the services that we fund to be able to live.
From your lens, where are the bottlenecks right now? Is it wait lists, housing scarcity, mental health capacity, or something else?
Yeah, so wait lists, big issue. Wait lists for housing, for mental health counseling and supports. Lots of the programs offered or delivered by community services sector, they are reporting to us wait lists. Again, because more people are experiencing need. So the bottleneck, I would say, is just the availability of affordable housing. And for specific populations like young people, the high unemployment rate that has emerged in the last, I'd say last 2 years. And the city of Toronto, for example, Mayor Chow talked about the high youth unemployment rate and the challenge that they've undertaken at the city to try and increase the number of young people that they're hiring through summer jobs and other things. But the lack of affordable housing in the Greater Toronto area and really across Canada is the key thing that is then having the impact on so many, in so many other ways. But waitlist for programs and services continues to be a challenge. And I would say there's a continuum when we think about affordable housing. So there are the number of people who are sleeping outside every night in encampments, in temporary shelters, in unsafe spaces, perhaps they are couch surfing, right? So they are going from family member to family member, friend to friend, because they do not have a place of their own. And so that's one extreme. That's homelessness, of course. And that is the most urgent and crucial because, of course, the longer you are sleeping outside, it's not safe. Winter's coming. And so then we worry about people and the cold weather and what that does, right? Mentally and physically to be sleeping outside. And protecting those folks and then trying to get them in to more secure accommodations, things like shelters or transitional housing, and over the last couple of years, the shelter system has been overloaded and full.
Well, why is it a challenge to keep the agency information up to date?
I think so yes and no. There are agencies who have been delivering services longer than 211 has been in existence, right? So those agencies are stable, they're long-term, their programs generally don't change much. And so they also have a mechanism to make sure that the information is updated. I think the challenge is for agencies that are new, coming in, starting, maybe those under a couple of years, 2 years, then ensuring that they know that 211 is an avenue for them to get their information out there. And so that's a constant iteration, constant work to make sure that they're aware as the people who need the service, that they should be posting their profile. And so one way that we do that is through our funded agencies and requesting that they make sure that they monitor their profile and they update that at least once a year, review and update if necessary at least once a year.
Fantastic. So for residents who use the service, are there common barriers after they get referred to as a provider? Have you heard anything to that extent? They may come back saying, "Oh, this didn't work out," etc.
Yeah, sometimes the service, so we talked a little bit earlier about like, does the service match the need immediately, right? And there could be a number of reasons for that. So it could be hours of operation. So if 211 provides me with 2 or 3 services based on the conversation I've had with them, they may come up with 2 or 3 services. Then the person has to take that next step and then determine, which of those services is going to help them. One, based on the time frame that they need the service, and then is it specific enough for what they need? So I think there's always, again, this matching, and there's a bit of work that's involved. And what we would say is, if you are connected to a neighborhood organization agency that's delivering services, Malton Neighborhood Services, for example, or Black Creek Community Health Center, or you go into the Rexdale Hub, where there are agencies already there, people already there to help you, then they can help you to figure out, what makes the most sense, right? So that's sort of an ideal situation, is where someone who is already in the helping sector is then providing those additional supports, so that you can then access the information that 211, you can use the information in the best way that 211 provides. But 211 is always it's still the best first step. It always is the best first step, because in absence of that, how else are you going to find information that's more tailored to what you need? Using a search engine is not perfect. It will not necessarily yield results by telling you, I'm in this community and these are the services in that community. People are trained. The folks who answer the calls are trained. They're familiar with the sector. Again, they speak over 150 languages, so they're able to speak to you in the language that you are most comfortable in, and then provide you with that starting point of information. And you can do it online too. You don't have to talk to people. You can use the chat function online, or you could just do your own search at 211.ca.
What role does multilingual and culturally specific outreach strategies play in the uptake?
So 211 tries to provide as many of the services that are available as possible, right? So that includes culturally specific, linguistically specific services. You will find, a wide range of community and social services. So I think that's one thing. They make sure that the services are diverse and can meet the needs of people, regardless of what that need is. So both by issue that needs to be addressed, by population and demographic, by accessibility, et cetera. So if I need to access an agency, I have a family member who might be blind and then needs, or hard of hearing, and they need those services, right? 211 can provide that referral, that information to the individual. Some services may not, again, be in the area, may not be close to where you live. And so then it becomes an issue of transportation. And it could be that there's a gap in that community of the services that person needs. But once you pick up, once you call the agency, then they can also help to navigate and make sure that you're accessing the services. So the database is a robust database. It's sort of constantly updated. And it is the single best source of information to get the types of community and social services that generally, like, most people need.
So with limited resources, how do you balance urgent needs such as emergency shelter with preventative investments like eviction penalty use supports?
Yeah, so good question. So United Way Greater Toronto, we do fund urgent needs, but we're really focused on addressing changes at the system level. because when we talk about things like housing affordability, the root cause is income, right? And lack of housing that is outside of market, outside of the market housing. And so that's what creates the pressure with respect to affordability. So United Way does balance those two things. We have 13 issue areas that we currently fund, and they're all focused on addressing poverty. Poverty is our.
Do I have permission to interrupt?
Yes.
How do you determine those 13? How does that come about?
Yeah. We went through a very rigorous process to do that. And so we think about what are the when we think about poverty, what are the issues that illustrate, right, that someone is experiencing poverty? So we talk about homelessness.
Yeah.
Right. Those are clear. We talk about things like gender-based violence, right? And then we're looking at the specific group of people who experience gender-based violence who are also in low income.
Right.
So that's how we arrive at the 13 issue areas through consultations with the sector and other stakeholders, data and research, literature, and so when those change, then it will also be reflected. It changes as a result of what is happening and conversations with our agency partners and with other stakeholders. So currently, our investments focus on everything we fund, every agency we fund, every program we fund, in some way is addressing one of those 13 issue areas. So youth programming, seniors, right? So again, one of the 13 issue areas. And so we look at, we don't have a formula in terms of, is it 60 or 60% right, or 40% that's addressing emergency care or emergency supports or urgent needs versus more systems. But United Way has an articulated commitment. And sometimes we are focused and funding research. Black Health Alliance, for example, does a lot of work on ensuring that health systems are responsive to the needs of Black people, in our case, in the Greater Toronto area. And so we fund some of the work that enables them to do that, right? Building the capacity of Black-led and serving agencies to be able to support the diverse members of the Black communities. That's also important. We support that. We lead and participate in a lot of research. So we just recently released a housing report, Built for Good, which focuses on some tangible recommendations for government, particularly the province of Ontario, to be able to really meaningfully address housing affordability, the shortage of affordable housing. So United Way plays, in addition to funding agencies, we play a role really that convenes stakeholders to have really difficult conversations about how we actually move forward together, because no one organization or sector can solve poverty or the problems, challenges that we're facing in the Greater Toronto area. And so outside of, funding 211 and funding agencies, there's a lot of other work that United Way does. And all of that combined then informs how much we do in terms of meeting urgent needs versus the longer term change that's actually needed, to impact people's lives. But people have needs now, right? Sure. So if we fund a drop-in program at a shelter, they're always full, right? Because people need that service today. But on the other hand, we are looking at what are some of the solutions, permanent or longer term solutions, to ensure that people can get into safe, affordable housing that meets their needs, depending on where they're at.
You mentioned that, sis, what's what you just shared. I also want to ask, what does collaboration look like across the Greater Toronto area with the municipalities and with other United Ways in other regions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so United Way Greater Toronto is part of the United Way family. And so United Way Centraide is the national kind of umbrella for United Ways across Canada. And we often work and partner with United Way Centraide on policy, research, advocacy, etc. United Way Greater Toronto also works closely with the region of Peel, City of Toronto, and York region on a number of things. And we talked about the understanding the needs of African asylum seekers in Peel, Toronto, and York report. Right. That is a good example of how we worked across with our municipal partners and with members of the community to undertake that qualitative research project. And so we build and maintain relationships. We bring those partners together to have conversations and then think about what is the thing that we can address that we have in common. And so that's a constant, it's constant effort and constant work. But United Way is known in the GTA as a convener, as someone who understands collaboration, whether that's with our agency partners that we fund. So Wood Green, we've got a great partnership on leadership development with Wood Green Community Services, or other agencies, with our municipal partners who are responsible for affordable housing and affordable housing plans in their community.
Wow. You start to wind down because I know you've got to get to somewhere, but let me ask then, what's next for 211?
So we continue to think about, 211 is always focused on making sure that the service is useful and helpful for people. And they do regular surveying to ask individuals, how was that experience? Did you get the referral you needed? Right. Were you satisfied with, the person who was responding to your call? Would you use the service again or recommend the service again? So, it's like a regular call center in that they track and they ask for feedback. We continue, for 211, it's really important, as we talked about, to make sure that the database and the information that they are referring is current, is accurate, and generally will help folks based on where they are currently residing, or where they're calling from. So 211 continues to do that. And there's always a iteration and evolution of how 211 delivers services. And 211 has been, in the last few years, thinking and talking about making sure that the services are culturally appropriate, that they reflect the diversity in Peel, Toronto, and York. Are there things in terms of social identity data? So are there specific communities who may not be accessing the service as frequently as others? And so what is the plan, to do that, to provide more awareness or marketing to specific communities, right? So it's all part of just making sure that the service is really there when people need it and that people know that it's available to them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, but you covered ensuring that, innovations don't leave those behind with low digital literacy. Right.
Exactly, which is why I think, just picking up the phone and calling the 211 and 1, there are a number of ways for people to access 211. So you don't need a computer. If you have a smartphone and you go into a place where Wi-Fi is available, if you don't have a data plan, you just dial 211 and immediately you will get access to someone.
I know you may have covered this at the beginning, but I want to just, if it is a repeater, it's also good to mention at the end. When should someone call 211 versus 311, 811, 911?
Yeah. Okay. So 211 focuses on referral to services that are defined as social services and community services. So you need an after-school program for your child, or a tutoring program for your child. Or maybe you have an elder in your family that needs to get out and engaged, right? They're at home alone, or they're home too often. So you would be asking for a seniors program in my community that then, that family member can access. You need some urgent services, right? You're experiencing violence, gender-based violence, and you want to create a safety plan, a plan to leave where you are currently staying. You can call 211 and ask them for shelters. Could be women's shelters or family shelters. It could be, you say that, I'm experiencing violence. Where can I go and how can I get there? And they will provide that kind of information. You need a food bank, right? Things are really, really tough and you're just not able to buy all of the groceries that you need. You need a food bank. They will provide that. So that's 211. Okay. Your community and social services, that's when you dial 211. 311 is there's a pothole on my street and it's been sitting on my street. It's been there for months and the city has not come and fixed it. I'm going to call 211. I'm going to call the city. So anything that's related to city responsibilities
311
is generally 311.
Okay.
And 911, I need an ambulance. There's an emergency at my home. Someone might be having a heart attack or some other kind of urgent illness that requires hospital or health attention by a health professional, or they're in danger and they need the police. They would call 911, right? And so 211 is one way to divert calls away from the 911 so that line is freed up for things that are suitable and urgent.
Just to ask also, when someone is calling the 211, is there any information they should have to speed up service navigation?
It helps so it helps one, like where are they located? That's one, right? So where would they like to access the service? And then what exactly is it they need? And sometimes they don't know exactly, like they know what they need, but they may not be able to articulate that. And so that's the person on the other end who answers the phone will sort of help them figure that out, right? But, where do you need the service? Like, where are you currently located is really important. To getting the information right, like that's an important source of information. And then the more you have about, the more you can articulate what it is you are looking for. Is it counseling, and counseling for whom? Is it counseling for my 4-year-old, right? They're experiencing some challenges versus, counseling, mental health counseling for myself. That also helps to narrow down and make sure you're going to get, accurate information.
Just building on from our previous conversation, how is 211 supporting settlement housing and legal information of newcomers?
So 211 will just provide, 211 can provide information related to a service provider that is then providing those. So if you say, you know what, I need some legal help, you are likely going to get numbers for legal aid or for a community legal clinic. Right? So that would be the perfect thing, is to say, you know what, the best bet is to call a community legal clinic, Mississauga Community Legal Clinic. There's the Black Community Legal Services.
Black Legal Action.
Action. I don't know what it's called anymore. So it's BLAC.
Yes, BLAC.
Black Legal Action. I don't know what the C stands for, but
we'll find out.
So, that's the kind of thing.
Black Legal Aid Clinic, I believe.
Legal Aid Clinic.
But I'll find out. Keep on going.
Right. And there's a South Asian legal clinic as well. So if you say, I don't know where to go and I need some legal help, you will get information from 211 there. So whether you are a asylum seeker, a refugee, a newcomer, a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, or an undocumented worker, for example, because it's all anonymous. Anyone can call 211, and then they will support you, in the best way that they can. So there are a smaller group of agencies that are probably able to help an undocumented worker. There are a lot of agencies who can help people with settlement and people with the asylum process, right? And some of those services are government services because they may connect you. It may only be a level of government that is addressing the issue that you have identified.
Correction, it's the Black Legal Action Center.
Thank you. Thank you. Black Legal, yes, because it was a different name before. So
yes,
totally. Yes, Black Legal Action Center. Thanks.
Okay, a few quick rapid fires, and one or two closing pieces. So, one misconception about 211 you'd like to correct?
That it's the same as 911 or
okay,
311. Okay.
Okay, next up, one service category you wish more people knew 211 can help with.
Oh, I don't know if it's a service category, but I hope people know that whatever language you speak, they're likely able to interact with you.
When you
right?
drop that 150 language, I go, that's big.
So people may not be calling 211 because they think that they have to only have the service is only available in English or French. And so that's partly a misconception, but also we really want people to know that they are able to help you and meet you where you're at.
Has there been any data insights that have surprised you in regards to the 211 service?
I don't know. To be honest, I can't answer that question. They collect service user data issues. I would say that I think I'll flip it a little bit. So the surprise, is that there's still pockets of the population that are not familiar with 211. Okay. And so that's a challenge and an issue and a thing that we have to continue to really address.
Okay. If every GTA resident took one action after hearing our conversation, what would it be?
Let people know that 211 is available. So let your family members know that 211 is available, and that if you don't need the service, but someone in your family needs the service and they need the support to navigate, that you can help them. You can also.
And then finally, how can agencies and local leaders connect with 211 to strengthen referrals and data quality?
You can reach out on the 211 website. There's the About Us, and then there's a specific link for agencies to be able to connect. And so you just reach out and say, I want to update my information or provide. They used to have a self-service portal that you could do that. I'm not sure that, so I don't want to say that that's an option, but there's a mechanism via the website and email contacts that you can reach out to say, I'd like my information added to the 211 database.
That's a wrap. Anything else you want to share?
Again, I think it's such an essential service, and it is the entry point to being able to access the specific services you need when you need them. And so if you haven't used 211 and you have a need to use 211, or you know someone who might be struggling to find the help that they need, start with 211. It is not a panacea. It's not going to solve every problem that someone has, but it is an important starting point.
I would say, especially if you're in the GTA, just go check out the website.
Yeah. And anywhere you live, if you have others that are viewing.
Actually, I think in Canada, and I think even globally, because you may have people that are in Toronto that say, hey, do you know about this?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So you can, it will ask you what province you're in when you go on the 211.ca. It starts by trying to figure out where you are, and then the information is tailored.
Thank you so much for taking the most important thing, your time, to share with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate that.
No, and
Thank you for the good questions.
It's an open door.
Yeah.
So whenever you want to come back and share anything about either yourself or what United Way is doing, you have a space here.
Awesome.
You have a space. And there's the link there. It'll also be in our comments section when we put this out. Just general, the United Way Greater Toronto, there is the website, unitedwaygt.org. As always, if you want to subscribe to the Dr. Vibe show, go to YouTube, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Also like the Dr. Vibe show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. And if you want to find out more about me, if you have time, I don't know, maybe you do, I don't know. You can go to a number of places, and I've got to just pull it up here. There we go. Find out more about Dr. Vibe and the Dr. Vibe show. There's the link there, toplink.cc/the Dr. Vibe show. And as always, you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe show on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Dr. Vibe show website. As always, this is the way we close out all our epic conversations. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and make it better. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith, walk good. And again, Adaoma, thank you so much. And looking forward to having you back when you have some time.
Awesome. Thank you again, Dr. Vibe.
Bye-bye. Wow.
Yep.
I feel like I'm in class with Dr. Alicia. That's a class I wouldn't skip. There's some other ones I'd like to skip, but I'm glad I'm not skipping this class tonight. So I'm hoping you're catching this live, but if not, certainly catch it on the replay because this is good stuff that Joe is laying down here. Get ready. When I saw this today, I said one word. Aya!
Did you really?
No, I felt like it's an incredible document that I'm going to suggest that you take and use as a lecture piece wherever you want to go.